being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, or offering a service out to the public, what kind of things you should consider. And maybe not, maybe you're considering being a good corporate citizen and maybe getting a role or responsibility within corporate America. There are certainly a lot of things to consider in both. And we're going to talk through some of those things today, and we may talk through some entrepreneurs that exist in society and open the floor for any questions. So if you have any questions throughout the entire process, feel free to ask, and we'll do our best to answer, give you some examples, kind of share some real life, understandings, maybe things that we've drawn from. So absolutely welcome. So you should have course material. I want to make sure that you received one of our first exercises. And going through an understanding, the goal is really to talk about what it means to explore the advantages, the disadvantages of being an entrepreneur. And what does entrepreneur mean? What's the definition? It essentially means working for yourself, creating a job or a responsibility for yourself, and answering to yourself and putting all this hard work in. There are a lot of people who exist today in our society that are successful because they decide to be entrepreneurs, or they had an idea or a concept that really took off. And there are people who may be entrepreneurs on a very small level. People locally, we have people here who own cake shops and food trucks that exist. I have a very close friend that opened a sandwich shop in Rio Rancho. It's called Uncle T's Sandwiches. And he's extremely successful, on that scale. Is he an Elon Musk? Not necessarily, but understand that there are a lot of people, and you have an opportunity in this country to be able to open your own business. If we look at the first exercise, it's a questionnaire, sort of a quiz you should see in 5.1. I'm going to pull it up here and we'll share with you too. Everyone see my screen? Awesome. You don't necessarily have to write this in and submit it. If we were in class, we'd do things a little bit differently, but I want you to think through this and give yourself a check mark. You can mark it on your screen or write it down the notepad or paper and answer these questions. I sometimes enjoy taking risks. And 1 is going to be strongly disagree, and 4 will be strongly agree. I like to work hard at projects that interest me. Give yourself a score. I have a high level of energy. I want to achieve results based largely on my own efforts. I like being creative. I like to start projects on my own. I tend to see tasks through to completion. I am confident in my abilities. I'm good at a lot of different tasks. And the one I think that we could all strongly agree with, possibly, I'm interested in making lots of money. I think that that's usually a motivator for a lot of us. And it's okay to be motivated by income and money. It's extremely important that you have money, you have bills to pay. As you get older, you're going to have responsibilities. If any of you attended yesterday's session, I'm certain you learned about credit and the importance of having not only access to money, but access to lending money. So being motivated by money is okay, but there should be other things that motivate you as well as you begin to consider what you're going to be doing as a professional. Now, add up your score for us. We want to talk a little bit through. And if you feel comfortable with sharing, maybe where you ended up. Is there anyone that ended up with, say, 1 to 9 as the score?
So in the chat so far, we have 31 out of 40. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
Yes, that means we have someone who's very inclined towards being an entrepreneur. It looks like Josiah, right?
Right. We had a 38 out of 40 from Evelyn.
And I'm not surprised here, because the fact is that you had to volunteer for this class. Is that right?
Yeah, it was not mandatory, I don't think, for any of these kids.
And remember, it's okay if you didn't score that high. If you're in the 1 to 9 range, the 10 to 19, even the 20 to 29 range, these things are going to change over time as you develop a knowledge base, and you learn to understand what it means to work and what it means to work for yourself and what exists in either the path of being an entrepreneur or being someone who goes into a job where you report to somebody and you have responsibilities that are already defined for you. Thanks for sharing those. So now
I got a 32, Billy.
a 32?
I got a 32.
Good. I have a great idea. I'll share it later, and maybe we.
Okay.
I've been practicing since we've been in quarantine. I've been practicing making cheesecakes, and I think that I've brought an expert cheesecake. So we thought about opening a cheesecake shop that might compete with, say, the Cheesecake Factory, because their prices are pretty high. So now what I want you to do is think about entrepreneurs that you know already exist in society. So I'll give you a moment just to think about people that you think or names that you've heard, businesses that you know that were created through entrepreneurship. Now think about some of the characteristics that entrepreneurs have. I'll share with you now a sheet that you should have access to as well. So sometimes working for others just isn't for you. But you have to understand what that really means. What does it mean to you and your job and your career path? So if we look under this chart here, we see condition of employment. So job stability. How stable is your job? Well, if you work for someone else, your stability depends solely on the success of the organization, the division, the department, or the people that you report directly to. But if you're an entrepreneur and you work for yourself, your job stability is completely dependent on your success and that of the business that you're running. You get back to working in corporate America, kind of like what Tara and I do. Your work hours are going to be dictated by the needs of that business. Generally, we work 45, sometimes 50 hours as leaders in our organization. It depends on your job, your responsibility, your salary. There are some people out there who do work for companies that are on call. They may spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the disposal of their employer. If you work for yourself, you're going to work very long hours, but you're going to direct those hours. What hours are your business open? What type of service do you provide? Yeah, if you own a cleaning business, you may do cleaning after hours that the businesses are closed and you have access to their offices and their facilities. But all of that's directed by you. And what about that success? In an organization like ours, our success depends on our efforts. We are a merit-based company, but it also depends on the success of the company overall. What department are we in? What does our leadership look like? And personal success for entrepreneurs is almost completely dependent on what effort you put in your own success and how you define success. I think it's important to ask that question too. What does success look like? What does it look like to you? And what does it look like to your business? And you get into a job role, your salary generally is going to be based on a market. We're paid well for the work that we do, but it's based on what are the market conditions and what are other people who do similar responsibilities that we have in other jobs, what are they paid? How do we get raises? Are they predictable? Are they incremental? Are they based on performance? Are they based on the cost of labor? When you have your own salary, if you're an entrepreneur, it's going to be low in the start. You're going to put up your own money. You're going to start your own business. Sometimes you may see that it takes years to turn a profit. You take a restaurant, for example. In some studies, restaurants may only have a 30% success rate in the first year. And that's for the people who are really just funneling their own money in there. So it depends on how much salary you can take and what you can afford and what you can live on for the building part of being an entrepreneur. And then do you put those earnings back into the business? And then those earnings are codependent on the success of the business. It's a cycle of how you invest your profit, how you put that money back into what it is that you're doing. And what kind of benefits? When we talk about benefits, we talk about things like paid time off, paid leave, contributions to a 401k, medical, dental, vision. Our company has a world-class benefits package. I look at benefits and I say, well, Fidelity offers us all of these things, and they help pay for some of these benefits. As an entrepreneur, benefits depend on what you're able to provide yourself as the owner of the business, and also if you have employees, how well you're able to cover them with insurance. Generally, if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to take a lot of time off. You're going to be working, vacations are minimal, because if you take time off and if you're barely starting, you're potentially losing income, which then could seed the investment and the profit in your company so that you can continue to grow. If you think about job responsibilities in our role are defined, they're outlined. Okay? We have expectations, we have certain goals we're expected to hit, certain growth we're expected to help develop within our own teams, and they can change as the business direction changes. As an entrepreneur, you're going to do everything. Your responsibility is A to Z. You keep track of the books, you keep track of the profit or the loss, you make sure that your equipment is appropriate, that your facilities are clean and appropriate, and pass any inspections that are required. Sometimes you may have to lease a building out, and then you have to go in and paint the building and then set it up with furniture. There are just so many different responsibilities if you're an entrepreneur. If you're working out of your house, you have to make sure that you have the proper equipment to produce the supply that's needed out there if there's a demand for your product. So these are some things to consider if you're working for someone else versus if you're working for yourself. Now, there are people who exist in both worlds. There are people who work and have a day job, and then on the side, they're entrepreneurs, and some of those people are trying to get started in running their business. Are there any thoughts or questions on that when we consider some of the risks or rewards in either working for a company or working for yourself?
And do we have any entrepreneurs in the crowd? That could mean anything like, are you babysitting? Have you started up a little business picking out weeds? I used to pick weeds a lot when I was younger, and I would go to neighbors' houses that I noticed had a lot of big spiny weeds in their yards, and I would look at that and think, jackpot, I'm going to knock on their door and offer to pick their weeds, and I would make money that way when I was in school. We got a couple babysitters in the groups. We've got Sarah and Evelyn, and Evelyn's a yard worker too. Sarah, you mentioned the entrepreneurs are independent and hard workers. So you've already started your entrepreneurial journey early on. So anybody else have any ideas of things that you're doing or have done or maybe want to do in the future as far as starting your own little business? We've got a lot of good answers in here, and I know that your day job at this point is primarily going to school and getting your education and kind of starting to think about what your future might look like. And I'm glad that you're all joining the class so that we can talk through a few of these things. But okay, so Billy, should we move on to the lesson in theme 2?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's good chat conversation, though. Thanks for sharing that.
So we talked about we did talk about the characteristics of entrepreneurs. They're hardworking, they're independent. They've got some good ideas. They're definitely committed to making their business work. What can somebody name 3 important elements of working for someone else? And we've talked a little bit about that, but what would be important for when you're working for someone else versus yourself? Billy kind of touched on some of that. That is, you're on their schedule, so you have to be on time. Stable paycheck, that's a very important element. You know that as long as you're showing up and doing your job, you're going to get paid the same amount. That's really good. Anybody have one more idea? Well, what are some of the important elements of working for yourself? Ooh, and more benefits. Yes, Sarah, definitely. When you're working for yourself, what are those important elements that you have? More flexibility. Yep. Creative freedom. That's exactly what I was thinking of too. Yes, you get to be creative and it's your idea. It's your business. You're the boss. And whether it goes one way or the other, it's all yours and you get to kind of drive what's happening. So yeah, absolutely. So out of the group, everybody can comment on this one. At this point, what do you think? Would you rather be an entrepreneur or working for someone else at this point? What sounds better to you? And there's no wrong answer. Both. So Sarah's going to have a stable paycheck, benefits, and creative freedom. Jeffrey wants to be an entrepreneur, and we're going to ask Jeffrey what maybe he might be doing a little bit later in the lesson. Josiah wants both. Sarah likes to keep busy. You'll keep busy working on both of those things, that's for sure. Evelyn wants to do both too. All right, good. So does anybody know of an entrepreneur in your community? They could be ones you know, but they don't have to be. And how might they be able to help you if you decided to become an entrepreneur? Do you know anybody who has started a business? Josiah, not yet. I know a couple of entrepreneurs. One of my very best friends, we've grown up together since before we were your age. She decided that she wanted to own her own business, and so she has started a cleaning company, and today is her 12th anniversary as being an owner of her cleaning company, which went from her just driving around to people's houses to now she has a logo and commercials, and her business is doing really well. And we've got, let's see, mobile dog groomers. See, that's great. Come wrestle my dog Max. He could use a bath. He's not a fan, so you might have to have hazard pay with that. But mobile dog groomers is great. Art commissions. Art commissions sounds, so Josiah must be artistic. That sounds really cool. And that could lead into a lot of other things like graphic designs or something like along those lines. Who knows? You could turn that into a business too.
I just want to bring something up real quick, Tara. So even too, guys, like things like maybe you know a second or third language, translation services, you know, tutoring younger kids because you're really good at math, or maybe you're really good at, you know, language arts or history. Tutoring is also, you know, a service or a skill that you can sell. You know, we don't think about ourselves in that way and the skills that we have to offer other people because a lot of times we just offer them, right? But if we're getting asked, like if we're really good with computers and we know how to set up systems, that also could be a side job that you can, you know, create and do because it's something you enjoy doing and it's something that you can provide a service and get paid for. So those kind of things that you're good at or that you like doing in your own time can, in what ways can you think of those to provide services to others? So kind of think about it in that way.
Absolutely. And Sarah's talking about some people in her family who started a preschool in their home. And I know people who do that too. And, you know, preschool and daycare is expensive for families. And, you know, if you have the means and you're able to, you know, get all of those sorts of licenses and things like that, you could take care of other people's children and help people work while you take good care of their kids. That's fantastic. And baking, hey, if you're good at baking, I'm definitely gonna find you because I like to eat baked goods. So that's a fantastic way to make extra money for sure. All of those, I love watching the cake shows on TV and the cake competitions, but I can't do it myself. So I have to go to somebody's business to get a cool cake whenever I need one. Great answers. So if you were to become an entrepreneur, how could these people that you may know, or what would you ask from them? How could they help you if you decided to become an entrepreneur? When I was talking about my friend who started her own business, I was actually just starting out here at Fidelity, and while I wasn't becoming an entrepreneur and starting my own business, I asked her a lot of business related questions because she was starting to employ people, and she was the boss, or the manager of her associates. And so I went to her and I asked her a lot of questions about what she did with a situation, how did she get started? Because it seemed like a really good idea to me that she's starting her own business with something. We all clean our houses, so what did she do? What did she have to learn? She ended up learning a lot of computer skills and things like that. And she had to make sure that she was on top of her budget. She was taking care of money, and that's kind of what I was getting into at the time here at Fidelity. So I was asking her questions about what was to her. Lots of questions to ask when you're getting ready to start a business. What did it take? How much money? Who did she need to reach out to start getting her name out there? There are so many questions that you could ask. And we have some folks in the chat who are interested in potentially tutoring. That's awesome. And maybe Trish would be a good contact as far as tutoring. Meeting all of our people through these Zoom chats and starting to ask the right questions. You can decide whether or not that might be a good move for you. Or you may decide that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go with the safety and just kind of stability of a regular job, and maybe I'll do like some photography or tutoring or something like that at a later time when you're a little bit more set up. All right, well, in the next part of the lesson, Billy, I'll let you take this over. Maybe let's start talking about some of these ideas.
Absolutely. That's good conversation. You guys got me thinking about all these ideas, and ideas come in waves sometimes. It's important to write down and remember some of the things that you're thinking of doing or services that you're thinking about offering, and then come back to them. I've actually seen some people who are so committed to writing things down, they carry notebooks everywhere they go. Some of those people are extremely successful. One person that comes directly to mind is Warren Buffett writes down a lot. Make sure if he has an idea, or if he wants to invest in something, that he puts it on paper so that he can always come back to it. Let me get back to our lesson here. I was copying and pasting a note for us.
I wanted to bring up one thing before you move on. So photography, that brought up, in my kids are out of high school now, but when they were in high school, the kids were in charge of the yearbook, and they used to sell senior pages. Like you could do special advertisement, and a lot of the kids had photography skills. So they were the photographers for that purpose, but then they also got side jobs to do senior photos because their pictures were so well. And then now they're in college and they still do like weddings and stuff like that. So it started off something small, like this is something I can do for pretty cheap as a project. And now people are noticing my work and I can get more jobs off of this. So, all those little things that you do for fun, you can, if you're good at them, or people think you're good at them. I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so that's always relevant, but there will be someone who's interested in your services. So those kind of things you think about, and think about how can you market yourself to get more attention.
I think that's an extremely important point, knowing that sometimes you may have a gift and it turns into the potential for income or the potential for a career. That's why it's also important to want to deliver quality and want to be good at what you're doing and have passion behind it, because your passion shows. If you're a photographer and you're good at it, people are going to see passion in your work. If you're an artist and you show passion in that work, people are going to be interested in it and they're going to want to hear that story. So yeah, absolutely. And mastering photography means mastering lighting. There's so many different courses out there. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of khanacademy.org. Yeah, I certainly encourage that too. We have access to Fidelity. One of our benefits of working for corporate America is we have direct access to LinkedIn Learning, and we can watch LinkedIn Learning videos. There's tens of thousands of videos out there. One of them is actually on photography. You can watch entire courses on photography, but those are good resources to have. And if you can, sometimes you got to search. You got to get out there and really just learn it. As we talk about maybe some of these things that you're talking about might be good to pursue, these interests that you have and the potential to become an entrepreneur within the rights or sectors that you've kind of mentioned in there, I want you to think about a good or service that you think people want. Maybe we're talking about our interests. Now, look back and think about the public. Is there something that doesn't exist yet that would be good out there? Senior mobile dog groomer, I think about that, and I haven't seen, there's not been a van that comes through here. Or maybe something that exists right now that could use innovation. Entrepreneurs also innovate. Think about that. Or is there an idea that's an original idea for something that just doesn't exist yet? So is there anything out there that you can think of that people don't have that they might be interested in? Doesn't necessarily be something that you would be able to provide, but anything in general.
What about hologram video games? Do those exist yet? I know
Kind of.
Chris likes to play video games.
Yeah.
More realistic?
They're becoming more realistic. You have the Oculuses that come out. You have these headsets that you can kind of wear, VR headsets, and then you have handheld devices. But in your video screen, things are coming at you, and you kind of work in that realm. But yeah, on more of a grand level, I think that is something that there's going to be a lot of want for in the future.
What else? Who else has an idea? It could be anything that you think of, either something that already exists or something that you think you can do better. I just had something called a birra taco not too long ago. Has anybody heard of these? Oh my goodness. It is the best taco I have ever had in my life. And it's BIRRA taco. And it has like, it had a couple of layers to it. And whoa, this lady is an entrepreneur who makes these tacos. And I was blown away. And she is creating this business from her home. And we found out about her and we went to go get these tacos. And I'm like, she should start a food truck because I will never look at tacos the same way again. So Trish says bigger access to 3D printers and laser cutters. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, a while back, my dad passed away a few years ago, but he was an advanced master auto tech for 30 years. So ASE master. And he was tired of working for shops. So we tried to kind of get a mobile mechanic business going, but I think he was just too late in his prime and we couldn't really get it off the ground. But it reminds me that there are some places in the country that have access to people buy shops and they lease out bays for you to come work on your own car. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before, but they provide tools and you essentially sign a waiver and an insurance form, and then you can work on your own car in a shop without having to have the space, and you have access to being able to drain your oil appropriately and store your oil, your used oil away. So I think that Albuquerque might benefit from a place like that.
For sure, that would be a great idea. Anyone else? Trish, what makes you want access to 3D printers and laser cutters? Do you like to use those types of things, and for what?
Yeah, I mean, well, we have them here at Explorer, of course, and people come here to use them. And there's a few other locations in Albuquerque where you can get memberships to do that. The technology is expensive. I mean, you can buy smaller models for home that some people might be able to afford. But what we find is that most people use them to create things to sell. They're, making, now, I mean, like UNM just set up their whole 3D printing lab to make masks for the healthcare workers. You know, you can 3D print that. You can, you know, we use ours all the time here at Explore to make things for our events to do that. I mean, I don't have one at home. And of course I get to use the ones here because I work here, but that is a big barrier where people like, I know how to code this. I know how to create this. I have an idea, but I don't have the means. And some of the places we have are very hard. It's not like easy access to get in to use them. So I think having more medium, because you know there's low end and then there's like the high tech ones where you need a lot of training and they're very dangerous, and then there's like the medium, like where most people could easily learn how to use them. I think we need more of those little hubs where people can have access to use them, because people are making magnets and they're making jewelry, and you know they're doing all kinds of cool things with them. I'm not very creative in that sense, so I wouldn't make any of that stuff, but but I think a lot of people would utilize it in that way if they had more access.
I've read a story just in the last few days where there was a doctor that had patients that were blind and they're having a baby and they can't see the ultrasound. So what he did was use a 3D printer to actually print out the image of the ultrasound so that they could feel it. So thinking about some of these businesses, yeah, it was really awesome. It actually got me worked up emotionally. I was thinking, you know, just how considerate and then how life-changing that one experience could be for those people. So if we're thinking about some of these things that we've talked through, there are some other questions that you're going to want to have in mind. How are you going to produce the good or service you have in mind? We're talking about 3D printers. We're going to be talking about producing a facility. How do I produce a facility that allows people to work on their own cars? And how do I make sure that I have the tools and resources available? How many people might you need to hire? You know, what kind of consideration do you have for hiring? Entrepreneurs sometimes open a business, and if your business is really successful, you might have to start branching out or hiring people to help you do the work that you're so passionate and committed to. What are their jobs going to be? If you open a daycare, do you need a receptionist or someone who keeps track of files? Or do you need an executive director? Is that you? Is that someone that you hire to bring in to license all the people who are helping? What if you grow from 1 class to 3? There are a lot of things to consider when hiring people and what their jobs are going to be. And how do you find money to start your own business? You know, do you have money right now as you're in high school and you're potentially working on the side? If you're either getting into work or you're starting to sell products, what are you doing with that money? Are you looking to maybe borrow from friends and family? Do you go to the bank? You have a business plan and say, hey, here's my business plan. I think this is going to work, and you ask the bank a loan. I know that there are other methods out now. We have you know, crowdfunding that exists, and Kickstarter and GoFundMe. Sometimes those can be feasible, and sometimes people may want a return on their investment in your product. So there are different accesses to finances to start a business, but you have to consider where that money is going to come from. And then how do you market yourself? You know, if in a different environment, we might sit and have you pitch us a commercial. I want you to think about that. What would your commercial look like? What would make me want to buy your product or rent from you, or allow you to produce a good or a service for me or my family, and so that I could spend the money that I work hard for and give it to you? Just some things to think about there. I think I want to share now, we had this summer, I just want to share with you a list of some prominent companies, some organizations that were started by entrepreneurs. I'm just going to give you a quick look at this, and you can spend a moment or two guessing. You guys see this here? So on the right side, we have the companies. On the left side, we have the people who started these companies, but they're not in order. So if you think you have an idea of who may have started Netflix, anyone know? I don't think we can we see chat while we're in here? Yeah, let me pull up chat.
Yeah, no one's answering.
No one's answering yet.
I don't think anyone knows who started Netflix.
Okay. Did you even consider? Then maybe we'll just consider the fact. We don't have to know who started these, but it is nice to see some names. Did you know that Netflix was actually an entrepreneurship? or that Google started out of a garage?
Apple too.
Apple as well, yes.
Started out of a garage.
Or that McDonald's, the McDonald's we know today, was started by an entrepreneur. We look at companies like Hyatt Hotels, Federal Express, Nike, Comcast. All of these companies were started by entrepreneurs. Someone who had an idea that there was a service, a good or a service that didn't exist, and it needed to exist. I'll share with you the people who started these companies. Now, there's a neat story about Netflix. Netflix, actually, when it first started up, the founders of Netflix reached out to Blockbuster. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Blockbuster. I know when I was young, Blockbuster was a big deal. Can you guys see that now? Are we on the right one? Let's see if it's sharing the one I wanted to share there. I'll try one more time. So Netflix, started by Reed Hastings. Netflix actually asked to meet with Blockbuster back when Blockbuster was the biggest name in entertainment. And they went in and they kind of gave their sales pitch, and Blockbuster laughed them out of the room. Well, now Blockbuster doesn't exist, and Reed Hastings and Netflix are pretty successful. We look at companies like McDonald's that were started by Ray Kroc, someone who went out in the business, and he was a milkshake machine salesman. And he got wind of these hamburgers that were kind of made quickly and made readily available to people. And he decided to take that business model and expand upon it. And it turned into what is now modern day McDonald's. There are people out there who sometimes see a business idea and they see an opportunity for growth, and they attack it aggressively. And then they take that idea and they make it more than what they might have ever imagined to begin with. Ray Kroc never imagined that there would be 13,000 McDonald's in the United States, starting from one McDonald's down in South California where he was trying to sell a milkshake maker. So that's just a list of some of the people who are well-known entrepreneurs in the country, and there are the people out there. For me, Elon Musk is very big in entrepreneurship, and the fact that he became a co-founder of Tesla early on. He wasn't the original person. Elon Musk didn't start Tesla, but he started Tesla early on, and then he became CEO. And now, Tesla is so successful that they had a stock split. So there are a lot of people out there who find great success. And then there are people who find success on a day-to-day kind of run-of-the-mill basis. They're entrepreneurs and they're able to keep things going forward, but they're not looking to, change the world. I just want to share that list with you guys. Hopefully you guys found that interesting.
Yep, those are the big names, but we even have, and I didn't get the names. I should have gotten the names. If we think about local entrepreneurs, we talk about Whataburger. That's a New Mexico business. I love Whataburger. I don't know about everybody else, but those breakfast burritos, burgers, and there are other New Mexico-based businesses that are all over the place now. But it just started out with one little restaurant or, one little store. The Range Cafe, I'm thinking mostly of restaurants. I must be hungry. But Flying Star, all of these are people here in Albuquerque who just had a good idea and maybe a good, pie recipe or hamburger recipe. And they said, you know what, I'm going to try to make money doing this. And now these restaurants have been around for years and years, and we all know them and love them. And it came from one person's kitchen or garage, or like some of the car dealerships. They're local families who just decided, you know what, I'm gonna take this idea and make lots of money, or some money. I'm just gonna take care of my home, but I want to be in charge of my business and my schedule, and I'm gonna take pride in everything I do. And that's kind of how that entrepreneurial style happens. And that could be you someday, and it may not. You may decide that you want to go the route that I did, and you're going to work for someone else. But you'll still have those opportunities. Once I come up with my $1 million idea, I'll be very lucky, but it hasn't happened yet. When Amazon started, it was a book company, and they would mail you books. I never in my wildest dreams could have imagined what it would turn into. And that wasn't even that long ago. It was in the last 20, 30 years. So it's pretty surprising what you can do with just one idea. So Vendors at the rail yards, Trish. Yeah, I love going to the rail yards and picking up some yummy soaps, or some pretty flowers that somebody just has a really good knack of putting together. And farmers, and selling all of the chili. Oh my gosh, it's chili season too. I am hungry. I think it's time for a snack.
And New Mexico Pinon coffee. That's one of my favorites. They just expanded into Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah. So lots and lots of good things. I hope that you all have learned a couple of things or gotten a couple of ideas. I hope that you continue this conversation. It sounds like the Science Fiesta is going really, really well. This is, these are the first times that I've taught any of these classes online. I know that this is different for all of us, but it's been really fun. So I want to thank everybody for being engaged, asking a lot of good questions, and sharing a lot of fun information.
Yeah, do we have any other questions for for Billy or Tara? I'm going to go ahead and put up an outro screen for you guys while we're finishing up, so you can kind of, oops, that's the intro screen, sorry. It's been a long day. It's okay, we're good. Hold on. I'm going to get there, I promise. That's not it. So as I'm trying to find how to put this up, I just want to tell everyone thank you for coming. Thank you to Tara and Billy, and of course to Fidelity for taking time out of their day to talk about this with us. There was some good conversations, and like Tara said, hopefully you can keep those going. Send us questions. You can reach out to Fidelity. I know there's resources on their website as well. And if you guys want more resources for them, you can contact me directly at Explora, and we can help connect you. We do have a couple more events this afternoon. We have a virtual escape room, which still has a couple of spaces. And then later in the evening, we have a tour of the space labs at the Air Force Research Laboratory, so on Kirtland Air Force Base. And then tomorrow, of course, we still have a full lineup. So if you guys want to know what's going on, please go to our website under Science Fiesta, and you can see the lineup. As well, if you submit a feedback form at that bit.ly link right there, bit.ly at feedback sci-fi, we are pulling daily prizes for from the feedback that were shared that day. So you have a chance to win a prize. They're different every day. So go ahead and give us your feedback. Tell us what you think. And with that, I guess there's no more questions. So we can go ahead and end this this session. And again, thank you, Billy and Tara.
I know there's a secret code involved in all of this.
Oh yeah, secret code. I'm sorry. It was there. Tara, you want to pick the secret code? You can pick it.
Oh, I get to pick the secret code? Anything?
Yeah, anything. I mean, usually we relate it to the presentation, but it doesn't matter. Whatever you want.
Ideas. How about that?
Perfect. So the secret code is ideas, Jeffrey. I will type it here, but since we're leaving, everyone knows they can write that down. So yeah, that's for their passports. They're submitting passports, and then they can also get a prize for their passports when they send those in.
I heard about that yesterday. That sounds really fun. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. Trish, thank you very much. Billy, thanks for joining us too. And thanks to all the students. I hope you're having a great year in 2020 as best you can. Thanks for joining us virtually.
All right, thank you guys. Goodbye. All right, I am gonna end